Welcome back to another deep dive into modern Indian history,
Yeah,
which, as always, this is super important for anyone preparing for the UPSC GS1.
absolutely.
But, even if you're not, even if you're just interested in Indian history in school, in college, whatever, this is a period that's just so dynamic, and there's so many fascinating figures.
So much going on.
Yeah. And today, we're going to focus on someone you're absolutely going to come across in your studies,
For sure.
Mahadev Govind Ranade.
That's right.
Now, he's often called the Socrates of Maharashtra.
Interesting comparison, right?
Yeah, and that's what we're going to try to figure out today.
Okay, let's get into it.
So why this comparison to Socrates? What makes Ranade so important in this era?
Well, I think that nickname, the Socrates of Maharashtra, it really highlights his legacy as this thinker
Okay.
who wasn't afraid to challenge the status quo, spark debate.
Interesting.
Just like Socrates did in ancient Greece, but Renade's context was completely different.
Right.
I mean, he's dealing with 19th century India, a nation under British rule, trying to figure out its own identity.
Okay, so let's rewind a bit, set the stage.
Okay,
So Ranade is born in 1842 in Nashik, Maharashtra.
right.
And this is a time when Western ideas are really starting to make their way into India, influencing traditional beliefs.
Definitely.
And from what we know, Ranade was like a deeply patriotic guy, but he was also really influenced by British rule and Western thought.
He's living in that world, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, he's connected to all these reform movements, like the Pratana Samaj, Arya Samaj, Brahma Samaj.
All pushing for change in different ways.
Exactly. So I'm really curious.
Yeah.
How did all these different forces kind of shape his worldview?
Well, I think that's what makes Renade so fascinating, right? He embodies this really interesting blend of East and West.
Right.
He believed in progress, in modernizing India,
Okay.
aligning Indian customs with Western practices.
But
He's not just blindly adopting everything Western. He's a nuanced thinker, right? He even criticizes some aspects of Hinduism, saying it had become too focused on rituals.
wow.
And he actually praises Christianity for its focus on spirituality.
So he's not afraid to kind of challenge conventions.
No, not at all. And I'm sure that sparked a lot of debate back then.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Absolutely.
But then on the other hand, we see him supporting the Swadeshi movement,
Right?
which is all about encouraging Indians to use Indian-made goods.
Yeah.
So how did these two things, embracing Western practices and promoting Indian economic independence, how do they fit together in his thinking?
That's where Renade's pragmatism comes in.
Okay.
He realized that just copying the West wasn't the solution.
Right.
He saw Western influence as a way to move forward, but
Mhm.
also understood the importance of India keeping its economic strength and cultural identity.
So it's like a selective adoption, right?
Exactly, like picking the best tools from a toolbox to create something new and unique.
I like that analogy. So he wasn't advocating for a complete overhaul, but more of a strategic integration of ideas.
Right, and you see that in his actions too, right? He wasn't just talking about change, he was living it.
Oh, yeah, totally. And we see that through his involvement with the Pratana Samaj
Absolutely.
and as editor of the Hindu Prakash.
Which, of course, was all about championing social reform.
Right. And then there's his personal life, too, which is really interesting.
How so?
Well, he actually educates his wife, Ramabai,
Wow.
and she goes on to become a doctor.
Which was a huge deal back then.
Oh, absolutely. And then together they establish Seva Sadan.
Right, the organization that fought for women's rights.
Exactly. So he's not just talking the talk, he's walking the walk.
Completely.
And then he gets involved in the social conference movement.
Yeah, tackling those really tough social issues.
Right, like child marriage, extravagant wedding expenses.
Oh, yeah, and the caste system.
Huge issues, and he's not shying away from them.
No, and let's not forget his role in the Widow Marriage Association.
Oh, right, which was founded all the way back in 1861.
Think about how progressive that was for the time.
Seriously. And they were advocating for changes to the law to allow widows to remarry.
Defying some really deep-rooted social norms.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, his dedication to women's empowerment is just remarkable.
Totally. He saw how these practices were holding India back,
Yeah.
and he fought tirelessly to change them.
He even challenged the purdah system, which
Ah.
kept women confined to their homes.
He understood that empowering women was crucial for India's progress.
Absolutely.
It's clear that Ranade saw education as a key part of all this,
For sure.
and he put that belief into action, helping to establish schools.
Right.
And he was also super involved in the evolving political scene in India.
Like how?
Well, he was active in the Pune Sarvajanik Sabha,
Okay.
which was this platform for social and political dialogue.
Interesting.
And he was also involved in the Indian National Congress.
Wow, so he's working on multiple fronts.
Oh, yeah, he was a busy guy.
Yeah.
And we can't forget about his intellectual contributions.
His writing.
Exactly. He was super prolific, writing about Indian economics, even Maratha history.
Wow.
And he argued that for India to really progress, it needed to develop heavy industries and embrace Western education.
So he's thinking about the long-term future of India.
Yeah, totally. And, all of this led him to earn the title Father of Indian Economics.
And he even advised the British government on economic policy, right?
Exactly, which shows just how much he was respected for his expertise.
And his ideas continue to influence future leaders, too, like Gopal Krishna Gokhale.
Absolutely. So, Renade's legacy is just huge.
It really is.
So for anyone listening who's preparing for their UPSC exams or just diving into Indian history,
Yeah.
keep Ranade in mind.
He's a key figure.
Yeah, he was a reformer, an advocate for women's rights, and just a really powerful intellectual force.
Absolutely.
He managed to navigate such a complex time, embracing change while holding on to a strong sense of Indian identity. And his legacy is proof of the power of ideas and the courage it takes to challenge the status quo.
That's a great takeaway.
So here's something I want you to think about as we wrap up.
Oh.
How do Renade's ideas resonate with contemporary India?
That's a good question.
Right. Like, are the solutions he proposed in the 19th century still relevant today?
Definitely something to consider.
Yeah, we encourage you to explore Renade's life and works more on your own.
You'll be surprised by what you find.
Absolutely. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more fascinating deep dives.
We'll see you next time.
See you then.
Bye.